The Effect Music Has on Memory Lab Report
by Courtney Weber,
Grace Thefaria,
and Theo Belvin.
Introduction. Purpose. The purpose of this experiment was to test if different genres of music affect people's cognitive ability. We did them by putting through the series of cognitive tests. One of the main purposes of this experiment was to test which type of music will allow for a person to focus best and how it will affect their memory. This is because some people may think that they are being very productive while listening to music, but it's actually hindering their work, while others may have always had this idea that listening to music was very disturbing. It might have actually been what they were missing in their studying habits. Introduction. Background. Music affects how the brain processes information and its functionality. Normally, regular information can easily be transferred around the brain, allowing us to comprehend what's happening around us. But with different types of noises, these connections are disrupted. Even low levels of noises can create physical changes in people. Some examples are how it affects the heart, lungs, and releases different hormones, among others. Over different periods of time with different people, as well as changes in situations, it can consciously and subconsciously change the way people function and acknowledge reality. The brain also can't process everything going on at once and its environment at one time. Researchers at Princeton University in Berkeley, California, have discovered that even when you believe your brain is completely focused, the brain is always somewhat distracted. The reason that people are not actually conscious of this is because the brain has tricked people into perceiving reality as one's perspective experience. The brain is always scanning the environment and listening to surroundings, whether a person realizes or not. The more changes that goes on, the more distracting the brain is constantly trying to update its knowledge of the surroundings. As a result of this, the more complex and faster an audio input is, the greater and more frequent the number of lapses in focus happen. On the other hand, while people sing or listen to music, it reactivates the areas of the brain that are associated with reasoning, memory, speech, emotion, and reward. These areas activated are the cerebrum, auditory cortex, and cerebellum and limbic system. The frontal gyrus, located in the cerebrum, is the largest part of the brain and is associated with recalling memories. The auditory cortex is part of the temporal lobe on each side of the brain. It analyzes information from the music while it's playing. Factors such as the volume, pitch, speed, melody, and rhythm are being analyzed. The cerebrum is located at the back of the head, while the cerebellum, or below the cerebellum. It is a control center for reflex actions, balance, coordination, skeletal muscle movement, and rhythm. The cerebrum allows for the body to work smoothly and to flow with the music. The limbic system, composed of several parts that lay far inside the brain. The limbic reacts emotionally to music, which is very different from others reacting to the other part of the brain. This is what produces chills, joy, sadness, excitement, pleasure, and other feelings while listening to music.
Methods. Our experiment was an online memory test. We tested for long-term and short-term memory. We had 60 people take the test on Zoom. It was taken 4 times in different environments: classical, pop, rock, and no music. The overall score for each environment would determine which environment is best for memory. The songs played was We Are Never Getting Back Together by Taylor Swift, Rip P by Noah, and Brian Storm by Arctic Monkey.
Hypothesis and prediction. It was hypothesized that if simple and calm music is played, then one will perform better in their cognitive ability in comparison to something with more complicated and dynamic music, because the music that is too complex is distracting and hinders people's ability to focus.
Data and visuals. The visual to the top left is a picture of the memory test that we did online. This is a memory test that had 3 different parts that tested short-term, long-term, and overall memory. This was the benchmark to find out what types of music would affect our cognitive ability and memory. To the top right, we have our raw data table, where we have, not raw data, overall data table. We have the average, standard deviation, and standard error of all the tests that we took. In the bottom right, we have the average overall memory scores in a graph format. This is showing how there's a big difference between each of the sections. And in the bottom left, we have the favorite and least favorite genre of music. This is the more analytical part of our data. So in the top right, we have this data. We have the averages of each of these categories. In classical, it says that there's around 63 out of 82 points in the test. And pop, there's 54, rock, there's 54, and none, there's 65. Now this is showing us how the no music and classical music did a lot better than the pop and rock music. And the standard deviation of each of these is also showing us how the data has changed over time, and standard error is also showing us how accurate our data is. And that's showing us how our data is surprisingly accurate for the amount of people that we've tested. In the bottom left, we can see a visual of this graph and understand how pop and rock are very similar which is assumed to be because of the amount of distraction in the music. Meanwhile, classical no music is a lot more calm, which produces around the same results. This is the interpretation of the more qualitative data. So we have the favorite and least favorite genre. For the favorite genre and least favorite genre, we tested these because we wanted to understand how the test takers felt during the environment. We saw that with the favorite genre, a lot of them were classical music and no music. This makes sense because it's a lot more calm environment and it's a lot more comforting for the brain. Meanwhile, the least favorites like pop and rock were very abrupt and violent and didn't work well with concentration. This is similar to the least favorite genre, where we again have rock and pop performing the worst in this case and having the most people dislike it. Meanwhile, classical no music had very little negative supporters.
Summary and the importance of the experiment. In summary, the experiment's purpose was to determine the optimum learning environment for cognitive ability based on memory scores in different environments. The data determined that classical and no music was the best environment and allowed for the higher scores in memory. This experiment proves the importance of one's environment and the impact it has on the brain. This will help determine what learning environment works best for someone and humans in general. Music, for many people, is believed to cause loss in concentration, while others believe it to be relaxing, stimulating, and relieve stress. Music has a strong effect on someone's mood and performance while working. Knowing one's preferred environment is extremely helpful for efficient work.
Thank you.
Thank you.